All right. All right. So
Yeah. What is this called, by the way?
I don't know. Favorite quotes?
No, I mean, what do we call the whole thing?
I call it Fantasy Geek or something. I haven't decided what to call it.
Fantasy Geek.
Because we're geeks.
By Caribou.
Because we're
Also,
geeks.
talc.
Which I don't even know what that is.
Get it? Talcum powder.
Yeah. I think it's a. I don't know.
For your soybean hopper.
That's what I don't know. My dad gave him the hat, for the record.
I don't know anything about it.
Just to clarify. Okay.
So.
All right. So.
Talking quotes today.
Yeah.
Best quotes, favorite quotes. Yeah.
Uh-huh. I don't know. So, do you have a few favorites you want to touch on, or just?
Well, you've got a good list going.
Yeah.
I have. Yeah. There are things in each movie. The first movie, the conversation between Gandalf and Frodo in the middle of the earth. While they're trying to make their way across, what is it called? Moria?
Yeah.
The mines of Moria.
That's right.
And he's telling them, first of all, it's not for you to decide all these things about your life. You got to decide what you're going to do with what you're presented with. And by the way, the story of Esther, I so often think of that when I think of that scene. So maybe you want to read that quote verbatim, and then we can talk about that one and go from there.
I thought with some of the shorter quotes we don't need, but some of these longer quotes are so rich you want to get them right.
That's right.
So I said, Frodo says, "I wish it need not have happened in my time," said Frodo. "So do I," said Gandalf, "and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us." I mean, of course, I hear Ian McClellan's voice because I think he was like a Shakespearean actor, isn't he?
I think he is. I think that's where his career started.
And that suits him.
Great voice, great casting of Gandalf.
Yes.
Absolutely phenomenal.
They actually wanted Sean Connery, but he said no. Or he didn't understand the film, so he said, "No, I can't do that," or something. But it's just kind of crazy, like you hear about some of these other casting choices.
You snooze, you lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course you never know before a movie that it's going to become like a epic classic,
Yeah.
But I mean, I hear Esther and Mordecai all over that quote because she's kind of saying the same thing. I just wish this wouldn't happen. I just wish people would, leave the Jews alone and blah blah blah, and I don't want to get involved. And Mordecai's just like, "Friend, you're involved. Whether you want to be or not, you're involved. You're a Jew in a time when they're talking about killing the Jews. You have to be involved. And are you the only instrument that God can use? No. But you are perfectly positioned for this time, for this place, for this challenge. And if you're not going to do anything, who is?"
Yeah, and I mean,
so
that's one thing I think that makes these characters have so much weight or resonate so much with people, whether it's Frodo, Sam, Aragorn, Gollum. Well, maybe not Gollum so much, but all these characters is.
I think Gollum resonates with people too.
Yeah, but in a different way.
But
the sense of inadequacy, like I'm not cut out for this stuff. I can't do this. This is not. Like Frodo at one point. Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. Says, "I can't do this, Sam."
Yeah.
And how often do you think that I can't do this?
You mean besides every day?
Yeah.
Like multiple times a day? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think, facing the tsunami of cultural, sentiments that are so against God right now, hatred toward God, all the while feeling like they're doing God's work, and that the people who really hate and are consumed with hate are people who are, following the teachings of Christ. It is so crazy in this upside down world. Do I feel inadequate against all that stuff? Yeah. Yep. Totally relatable.
I know one thing I had heard. I think I thought about this a little bit watching the movie, and then somebody like on Pinterest had really brought this up. They're like, it's something that says like somebody looking at. They were thinking about COVID and all the stuff that's happening in the world right now, saying, "I wish this hadn't happened. I wish it hadn't happened in my time." And then it says Gandalf materializes and says this quote or whatever. I mean, it was obviously they were thinking about it. It was kind of it was kind of a joke, but it's still true. It's like how many times have I thought that I really wish that this stuff wasn't happening right now. I wish we could go back to the state of the world at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
And it's never going to happen. Like that's one thing. Like another quote that they have. Frodo says at the very end is, "How do you pick up the threads of an old life when that's gone away?" It's like, you don't. I think about that in relationships. You can maybe have healing and you can build a new, better relationship, but you can never go back. Like,
Yeah.
I will never have the relationship, like if I met people from high school now, we'll never have the same relationship because I'm not the same person.
No, and neither are they. And
Yeah.
their life experiences have taught them things that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I mean, like, there's a song by, what's his name? Oh, Rick. No, it's not Rick Springfield. I can't think of it. But it just says, I wish that I knew what I know now when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like, yeah, but you can't know that stuff because you learned that through a lifetime of experiences. Yeah, the implication is I would have been so much wiser. I would have done things so much better. Well,
Yeah.
and you might not have learned what you now know. So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we learn by being stupid.
Yes,
Anyway.
indeed.
Yeah.
But you know, Frodo's sentiment at the end of the whole thing, when he's like, yeah, how do you pick up the threads? How do you go on? How do you have this experience and then go back to just Shire living? Like, sweet, let's sit around smoking the milkweed and hanging out and looking over this beautiful landscape. He has the same problem that Bilbo had after his great adventure. You something has fundamentally changed inside, and you can't just carry on like you did. So, which in some ways is sad, and in some ways is, I suppose, exciting.
Yeah.
You know, from adventure to adventure.
Well, what does it Bilbo say when he gets on the ships? I think I'm quite ready for another adventure.
Yeah, and he's kind of always in that mindset now. Which, again, you want to talk about relatable? Yeah, I mean, one of the great things that I suppose you grieve in a way about all the stuff that's going on is you're going, will I ever travel again? Will I ever be able to have these international crazy adventures again, like we did? You know, like we did for 5 years solid, globe trotting and stuff. And you come back and you're like, yeah, that's not something I want to just put on the shelf and, oh, that was a cool 3, 4, or 5 years of our life. You want to continue those things, not at the same pace. But, I mean, I'm confronted now in 2021 with the very real possibility that international travel for me might be over forever, might be a long time in the making. I don't really know.
Just because of
borders, countries being shut down, vaccines, vaccine passports, all this rigmarole of stuff that they're talking about, and I don't know if I'll be, you know, even able to do some of this stuff again. But
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah.
So.
What else?
I think it's important too to just say before we depart and go on to another quote. I think every era has these moments where they're like, I wish that I didn't live to see this particular thing, whether it's communism, whether it's Cold War, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's, you know, World War II, the Great Depression, on and on, all the way back. There's always something that makes you go, wow, I'm trembling in fear of what this could mean. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So now let's get on. Now we move on to I think probably my favorite speech in the whole thing, which is, and I mean I'm pretty sure it's yours too, which is for Sam's speech at the end of the Two Towers. I don't know. Is that one of your favorites? I don't know. What is your favorite?
Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite spoken moment. You know.
Speech. I said. Yeah.
Speech, favorite, whatever, dialogue. And really, it probably was Christy who has always said, like, that's the moment, man. That's, what's the town they're in? Osgiliath?
That sounds about right.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Osgiliath. And,
I don't remember
and they're,
for sure.
You know, they're about to depart from the company of Faramir and go on to get it done. And yeah, this back and forth between the two of them is so powerful. So, yeah, and Christy has always just been like, oh, come on, maybe that's just majestic. So yeah, why don't you read that and we'll chat about it.
So it says, so, you know, Frodo of course says to Sam, I can't do this, Sam. And then Sam just says, I know, it's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here. But we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of the darkness and danger they were. And sometimes they didn't know, that you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad happened? This is what I'm hearing. This is like 2020 and this is my life right now.
Exactly.
But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folks in these stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. And then Frodo says, "What are they
holding on to, Sam?"
And then Sam says, "That there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for." And I just think, I remember watching this movie with you guys, and that was like, I hadn't really gotten teary the whole way. That's the part where I just about burst into tears, because how many times have I thought, I don't want to know the ending. How can the ending be good? And of course, I mean, we as Christians know, regardless of where this is going, for us, the story, there has a happy ending, because eternity. But even that there's bittersweet, because it's like, these people that I want to be in eternity with me, and right now there's no guarantee that's going to happen. And there's still like a, almost going through a grieving process of like, okay, all these things that might not happen in my life that I wanted to happen, but, but again, like, guess what? It's going to be okay, because, I mean, I know the second, when we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be, but I mean, I just think, again, like, the line that got to me was, how could the world go back to the way it was before when so much bad had happened? And then, sorry, the right before, because how could the ending be happy? Do you even want to know the end? So that is, like, huge.
It's, the one thing that we can't possibly conceive of on this side of eternity is how good eternity is going to be, how good heaven is going to be, how good the presence of God is going to be. So for us, we mourn the loss of these temporal things because we can't imagine heaven to be better than the best thing we've ever experienced, really. I mean, like, it's like, how could, the relationships are going to be different, but that's not cool.
Yeah.
How am I going to relate to my kids, my wife, my parents, my whatever? And you go, how could it we start hyperventilating, and it's like, God, I think, on the other side goes, if you only knew, man. If you only knew in your tiny little human pea-sized brain.
Yes.
The things that I have in store for you, this stuff wouldn't be your greatest concern. Your greatest concern would be getting everybody you know to come with you.
Yeah.
And everybody you don't know to come with you, because that's what God wants, for people to spend time in His presence. But this, Sam, he really nails. Tolkien really nails like a Garden of Gethsemane sort of feel. He's I think so much of what he writes is whether it's the Battle of Helm's Deep, whether it's the the final push.
What is the Battle of Helm's Deep like? So is that you mean like that's what's the word
I think
so that's some representative something.
I think he has these moments all throughout the series where he sets up this eucatastrophe thing. This how could this possibly, like, the night is so dark, the odds are so impossible, everything's gone wrong, everything's going wrong, we're all dead, it's over, and then bang, just like the resurrection. Like, how many times did Jesus tell the disciples, I'm coming back? And they never could get it.
Yeah.
And they run to the tomb and they're like, wow.
Yeah.
They still don't get it, really.
Yeah.
And
well, it says, isn't the verse, until then they had not understood the scriptures that said Jesus must rise again.
Yeah, basically.
Even though all the times he said, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen.
Oh, it's metaphorical. Oh, it's a parable. Oh, it's whatever. And Tolkien does this all the time. Like, the evil is so evil. Hello, 2021. I mean, here we are again. And all the stuff you hear in the news, and it's like, even 5 or 10 years ago, this would have been preposterous that we could be talking about, whatever. Fill in the blank.
Hormone blockers. Kids' books.
Hormone blockers, yeah. Propaganda for children. Like, transgenderism is the best. I just heard that California is, they're allowing inmates, if you identify as the other gender, they will house you and treat you as that gender. So they said 200 men have already, in just a short time, asked for transfers to women's prisons. And we're going, you have got to be kidding me that this stuff is real. Because it goes from impossible to improbable to likely to inevitable to unquestioned. You know, that's what John Stonestreet was. He was just saying things that 10 years ago would have been impossible are now unquestioned in our society. The evil is ramping up so hugely.
Yeah, we can. And, I didn't think as a 19-year-old or whatever. I didn't think even like when first. I didn't think 2 years ago or whenever it was that this is where we'd be in 2 years. I didn't think a virus would be what would
usher in a new age of evil.
Yes.
And that's really what we're seeing. We're seeing it in politics. We're seeing it in medicine. We're seeing it in social programs. We're seeing it in relationships. Right across the board. Another thing that John Stonestreet was saying a few days ago, he's the Breakpoint guy, and he was saying anytime you get a pagan society really revved up and churning, you have to protect kids every time. And so we've had this problem for 48 years, ever since Roe v. Wade, well, and even further back than that. But, you think about a society that's okay with legally aborting 60 million plus children. You got to protect kids there. But now there's this new level, this new wave of the transgender movement, which is all about attacking and destroying children, destroying them. So how can we go back? How can we whatever when the world is so consumed with evil and hatred? And look at everything that's going on. Hate your country, hate the police, hate whatever. How about we hate racism together? Like, there's an idea, But anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
I'm good at that.
Yeah.
What do you love?
I love. Well, I know.
Besides that line you mentioned.
Well, I love this whole. I love. I think that's the main part I love, and also like there's some good in this world, Mr. Roy. So it's easy to be like, to get into a woe is me.
Easy, very easy.
Oh my word, the world's going
falling
to hell in a handbasket. Yeah. Everything's like. I think we could have this conversation a lot. I think you would talk about this like in church and youth group, but you know what? There's still people in this world that give me. Of course, our hope is in Jesus, but there's still the hope. And again, it goes back to, even if, yes, the sky really does kind of feel like it's falling out, feels like it's crumbling, but we have the hope of Jesus that comes over. And we got
the ace card right here. Bang.
Yeah.
It's always there.
Yeah.
Our hope is in Christ.
Yes. And I know, I was thinking about, what is it that they, I see parallels too here. Symbolic, that's what I was trying to think of earlier. Symbolic of, what is the story in, where is it? Is it Elijah or Elisha that has the dukes it out with Jezebel? Elijah. And, he goes into the cave and is like, I'm the only one left. And God's like, no, you don't know that there's my prophets are in a cave. Like they were being hidden in the caves or the remnant of the faithful or whatever. And
there's
it's just
such the remnant.
The remnant.
Always a remnant.
The remnant. I just think that's such a lovely. And like that, there's still some good in this world. And it's worth fighting for.
Hang on to that stuff.
Even if there's just a little bit of good left, it's worth fighting for.
It is worth fighting for. The woe is me stuff can only take you so far. If it generates a desire in you to like, woe is this world, it is passing away, we are in a dark late hour and we must be about, because what are these two about? They are single-minded, focused on doing the Lord's work, if you will.
Yeah.
Destroying evil in their day. And what does Ephesians 5 say? It says, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Well, if that's not where we're at, if that's not what all of this generates in us, then it's generating despair, which is not going to help us share with our neighbor, share with our whoever it is. Like, no, there's actually something very good in this world that's worth fighting for, and it's called Jesus.
Yeah.
Period. And that's not a get out of jail free card. That doesn't mean you're going to be raptured pre-tribulation. I know a lot of people believe that. I'm not one of them. But it does mean that when you do die, whatever that looks like, no matter if it's in your sleep or if it's agonizing, you will go to be with the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords forever.
Yeah, and
hallelujah.
I know people who they've done this kind of thing where they're just like, you know what, the sky's falling. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just glad that I'm going to heaven. Yeah. And they're not like, no. Well, guess what? You're not in heaven yet. And like they will literally say, I wish Jesus would just come up and hurry up and come back and take us out of this mess. It's like, No.
That's good for you.
Yeah, what about these people over here who don't know Jesus yet?
Billions of people that are going to hell,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the harvest is, the crop is white unto harvest. Like, we need to be in the fields, in the trenches, in relationships, and that's the insidious part about COVID. It's like, it's not only accelerated evil like mad, it has also shut down normal relationships, gathering, talking with people in person, which is a trillion times better than the online crap. One last thing before we depart from this quote, and I know we're running out of time, and maybe we just make part 2 about the rest that we didn't get to.
Oh, we can always add a little bit to it.
Yeah, I love the, what does this get right back to? Grittiness.
Yep.
Folk in those stories did what? They kept going when they didn't want to. They kept on going. They kept on trucking. They plodded on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that he brings it back to, what do you need in life? More grit.
Well, yeah. So let's segue. Like, since we're talking about Sam, we can segue into another line that he says, which is one of my favorite things that he says. And I've talked about this, is when Frodo just falls down exhausted because, they've both been journeying the same way, but Frodo's carrying the burden. He's carrying the evil in the world around his neck, which is just kind of a creepy thing to think about, horrible thing to think about. But Sam says, I can't carry the ring for you, Mr. Frodo. Well, first of all, he kind of tries to encourage him with this, do you remember the Shire? Do you remember all this? And then he just says, I can't carry the ring for you, Mr. Frodo. But I can carry you. Come on, let's go. Or whatever. I don't know how exactly he says it, but I just think that's, again, the grit. Sam has so much grit that I love that, Or what's the line from Cars? You got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. He does. I mean, that's...
And I just think that is... So, again, it goes right back to, that's what you got to do for people sometimes when they don't have the strength. The Aaron and her.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. There's so much.
Totally an Aaron and her thing. And, Frodo, whatever. I don't love his characterization in the last movie, and Elijah Wood. He plays it really well, but he's always like falling over and whatever.
My mom actually thought the way they shot him was kind of annoying. But.
Yeah, I think he's kind of annoying. The way that he falls over and his face is just contorted all the time and whatever. And yet he embodies so well that very thing. Like, just gonna keep on trucking, keep on going. Might be 5 feet at a time, and he's got the friend there to prod him on. Like, let's do this.
We all need the friend that's like.
We all need somebody to lean on. So it's true.
But anyway, so that's just, I don't know. I don't have much to say. That's so good. I just whatever. And then so I want to just again talk briefly another quick line that I want to talk about because it segues into the speech I want to talk about, but it says, which is a line when Elrond comes and brings this. I think it's like it gets renamed on Dulian or whatever. He brings the sword, and I think maybe I get caught up in the emotion because the cinematography and the music in that scene is amazing in that one. But I just love
with your emotions for sure.
Yeah, I mean, music always does. But he says. But he looks in at Aragorn and just says, put aside the ranger and become who you were born to be. And I mean, I just think that is such a simple line, but it's so beautiful because up to this point, I mean, Elrond's kind of he's not a wet blanket, but he kind of is because he's like, Arwen, no, go, don't be with the man you love. And I mean, there's a father's love in there. You can see it. And someone made the comment I totally agree with that said that this line means so much more when you know that Elrond's actually the one who was I kind of implied that he was kind of a father figure to Aragorn in an interesting way, in a different way. But there's not contempt there. It's not like, I really don't like you right now or you're such an idiot. It's, you can do this. Come on and step it up, buddy. Suck it up. I mean, there's so much, and it's, again, I keep going back to Hugo Weaving's an amazing actor. I love he can act with his face so well.
Yeah, he does a lot.
Of facial acting. But he just is there's so much, love in that. And
Yeah.
How often do you need the friend? Like, there's sometimes you have the friend that needs to slap you on the upside of the head and say, stop being so stupid. And then sometimes you need to be like, no, stop getting down on yourself. You have the ability to do this.
Yeah.
Let's talk, let's figure, do it together. And like, but again, he brings the gift that will enable him to do it, and just says, now you just need to step up into your whatever. I don't know. I just love that line. I don't know about you, but
yes, when you talk about it, it reminds me of the moment when Gandalf walks into the halls of the palace of Rohan. And he's kind of trying to play up this feeble little old guy thing, and then Wormtongue says something to him, and he's like,
then he say, keep your silence, keep your forked tongue behind your teeth, and I cannot do something to exchange words with a sniveling worm or whatever. I just think that's a funny,
wonderful line, and a very similar, like, put aside the Ranger, put aside Gandalf the Grey, and step into the new, more powerful calling, the mantle. It's like to me, you have another picture of Elijah and Elisha. What does Elisha say he wants? When Elijah goes to heaven, double portion.
Yes.
I want a double portion of the blessing, and that's what Gandalf the White is to me. He's got a double portion of strength. Now he's more powerful than Saruman. Now he's casting the demonic out of Theoden and casting the worm into the darkness. And of course, run him through with a sword, even better. Rather than just tossing him out of the thing. But again, Wormtongue, just like Gollum, ends up performing a function. Tolkien again, just these little things he writes in there. Wormtongue performs a function in killing Saruman that Gollum performs in killing the ring, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's
there's a purpose to the evil.
There's a purpose. So it's right back to Gandalf in Moria saying, do not mete out death and judgment so easily. Because even the very wise cannot see all ends. And then Tolkien shows you two instances where the evil ends up collapsing in on itself. And two evils, God uses double evil to bring forth his purposes. And only God could do that stuff.
Well, I think, I know. And I think this line also is, and I love the line, the put aside the Ranger line in itself. I love the scene. But I also love the effect that it has on Aragorn, because it seems like he was kind of stepping into becoming a leader. He was becoming more like assertive, more I can do this. But that's the moment. It's after he never declares I am Isildur's heir before this point.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure there's a little bit of like, oh my goodness, my one true love is dying. That could kind of
motivate you. But that's in the tent, right before they go into the mountain. That he brings in the sword and says, step into your calling, basically.
Yes, and then, but again, I love this. And then one thing I want to segue, last thing we can talk about is his Aragorn's speech at the Black Gate. And again, I wanted to talk about put aside the Ranger first, because I feel like that line would not have, that line is what makes, that interaction that they have is what makes this thing possible. And you just see such a change in his countenance. He'd already kind of changed, but that's kind of what completely makes him step into becoming a king. Yeah,
it's interesting how many of the characters go through this kind of process. It's we've already mentioned Aragorn. Gandalf does, sort of.
Yeah.
It's like he steps into a new mantle of authority. Theoden comes from the darkness into the glorious light. You hear echoes of 1 Peter 1.
You call my name and I ran out of this grave.
Yeah, right. He's called us out of darkness into his glorious light. That's what Jesus does when he deals with our minds. We all were Theoden at one point with Wormtongue, and we still have to fight against that. But here comes Jesus. Go back to your grave, you worm, and I'm going to call you out of the grave. But Merry, Pippin, Sam, Frodo. You think of how they all sort of go on this journey.
Even like Legolas
in their own way.
Even Legolas and Gimli, but not really like their their personals, but their relationship with each other.
Yeah.
They transform from hating each other to
There's so much growth that's shown, and a few characters don't. A few characters recede. Saruman recedes from light to darkness. what's his name in Gondor recedes from light to darkness. You always know it, and I never do.
I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head.
But anyway,
Boromir's dad.
Right.
Denethor. That's what it is.
Denethor.
I think for a second.
So anyway, it's just you get these two things working. Even Éowyn stepping into the calling, slaying the great monster.
Yeah.
There's so many that are moving into that Faramir.
Yeah. So she says, So Aragorn says, "Sons of Gondor, of Rohan, my brothers, I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day, an hour of wolves and shattered shields, when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West." And again, I come back to a huge thing I like about this is just, again, like, how this is like the culmination of Aragorn's transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Almost more so than his coronation, I would say, because I love his coronation, but this is where
he has firmly established that he is the leader.
Yeah, and
he is the king.
But he doesn't do it in like a "you will follow me." He's like, he calls out, I don't know, he does, but
it's based on his moral authority to do so.
Yeah, right? But I mean, I don't know, he's still like how you said, I think you said something about when we were watching the Two Towers. I think it's the scene. This is where, this is what I point back to when you complain about my Aragorn obsession. But you said when he and Legolas and Gimli are running across the hills or whatever, and you said, "Oh, he's got to be the coolest movie character ever." Vigo struck gold when he got to play that part or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, he is. It's
because what did you say? He's humble. He kicks butt. He does all this stuff. I mean, I love his humility because. Yeah, these arrogant people you just want to smack, even if they have the right to rule. But you have these.
Yeah, he's tough. He's manly. He's kind. He's humble.
Mm-hmm.
Got sick hair. It's all of the above, So.
All right.
It's
Okay. He admitted that he's good looking. I'm not the only one.
I never said he wasn't. But...
hey, he brought it up. I did it. He brought it up first. Anyway, just say it. Okay, sorry. No more. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. But anyway, so one thing that you said I thought was interesting. We were watching this movie at your house. I remember when Aragorn's giving this speech. I heard you. I don't know if you said it for our benefit, but the line, "The day may come when we break all bonds of fellowship," and you just kind of said, "Yeah, actually, I think it is today," or something like that. I don't know what. So I don't know if you want to expand on that, because that was one thing one reason I wanted to talk about this is because I wanted to hear what you thought.
Yeah, I just think, when you watch these movies, when you read these books, when you listen to how Tolkien weaves these things and the patterns, whatever, like maybe the pattern of human history is always the same. Like things are good, and then something comes in and corrupts the good, and then things get really bad, and then something comes in and destroys the evil. You see this pattern in the Old Testament all over the place. A flood, a confusing of the tongues of men, on and on and on. You read 1st and 2nd Kings, it's like, oh my goodness, it's good, then the next one's evil, and then the next one's good, and it's just a gong show. But right now, it's so easy to just pick up on these themes and go, man, breaking the bonds of fellowship, isn't this exactly what this virus is about?
Because we're fighting over...
We're fighting over everything, and when we're apart all the time, we lose sight of our common humanity, and we also get just totally sucked under the anesthetic of media. The media has never been, to my knowledge, more powerful and more pervasive than it is right now. And the media, their basic, what they're creating, what the media is creating is hatred. On both sides. Hate these people. Hate this group of people because they're evil. And we're going, yes, they are. They are evil. And I'm not gonna see them. I'm not gonna get together with them. We're not doing Thanksgiving together because the governor said we can't, and because we don't want to see them anyway. These people are responsible for all the woes in our society. These people hate other people so we can hate them.
Yeah.
And man, we have we have broken the bonds of fellowship big time.
Yeah.
And are getting more and more and more polarized every day, it feels to me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I know one line that I thought was interesting. One thing I thought about, I was thinking about it when on my way here. I was thinking, there's a line way back in the Fellowship that I think kind of is so true of our culture right now too. I mean, it kind of fits along with this breaking the bonds of fellowship. It's just a line that's not even the focal point of a scene, but it probably made one of the biggest impacts on me in this whole part. And during the Council of Elrond, they're disagreeing about who's going to take the ring and what to do, and we're actually focusing in on Frodo, who's just kind of like, I can't handle this, as they're fighting. And I think like Gimli had insulted Legolas, so Legolas isn't the type that's going to go up and grab his throat, but I think some of his friends are, and all this kind of stuff. And Gandalf says, "You fools, will you quarrel amongst yourselves? Sauron's power grows." And I'm like, that is again, right back to breaking the bonds of fellowship. That is what's happening in our society right now. What we're fighting about in the church, for crying out loud, what we're fighting about, do we wear masks or do we not wear masks? Do we break the rules and have plenty of people together? Do we social distance? Do we do all this stuff? And then if you want to go more like specifically to the church, like the disputable matters of, alcohol, baptism. I remember hearing a pastor say once, I don't think the church has fought anything more over how we do than baptism. Oh, wait a second, communion. All this stuff that denominations fight over. And while we're having this little fight, we're having this big argument, there's an evil right there that we're totally ignoring that's just being allowed to grow. And again, we're breaking the bonds of fellowship, and we should be linking arms and fighting against Satan together. So I just thought those two,
Yeah, exactly. It's, I think, going back to the question that somebody asked me last week, maybe, or 2 weeks ago, are things more evil than they've ever been? And I go, well, I think the church has less influence and is less active and more quiet and sequestered away and less membership and just less influence on society than it's been in maybe 1700 years. Mm-hmm. At the same time, media has never been more powerful. So that combination, are we doing things that are more evil? Listen, there's always been evil. But the crushing of the church, the silencing of the church, and the elevation of evil through the media is it more evil? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But that combination is very, very bad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I agree with you about the breaking the bonds of fellowship or fighting over the biggest thing.
Right. Are we going to just dither around talking about stuff that ultimately, the mask. Wow. Mm-hmm. You make people hate each other. You make people leave churches over or just leave a church and never come back. We have families that they haven't been back for over a year.
And for both sides of the issue.
For both sides. Uh-huh. And meanwhile, the evil in our culture is growing to a crescendo height of, it's just unbelievable what's going on. Mm-hmm. And here we are fighting over, are we going to have church and mask and social distance and blah, blah, blah.
Well, I know, we were at a meeting discussing how we're going to do a kids camp this summer, and I finally said, you know what? I said, I'm just going to pray that the mask mandate goes away. Sorry if that offends people, but I was like, no, I don't. Sorry. Not sorry.
Brought to you by Caribou. This opinion endorsed. Never mind.
Yeah, don't start down that road. We don't want them to yell at us. But he says, but I said, maybe we just need to pray and fast that, first of all, that God's will be done, and that this will go away, because what does Jesus say? There's some demons that only are cast out by prayer and fasting. Is this a demon? Not necessarily. But is it having the effect of a demon on people, on the church? Yes, absolutely. So I was like, let's just unite in prayer and say, let your
powers of darkness are going to use any and every avenue available to them, and this is a wide open avenue. Yeah, let's get people to hate each other over masks.
Yeah, something that
It's easy.
so doesn't
easy.
matter.
It's been easy, and it's gone on for over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean the masks were being used.
They just weren't a mandate.
Mandated, but by the time we get to camp, it'll be a year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
anyway, so yeah, I don't know. But
we did a good job staying within our 20
I know, we did a
minutes.
great job.
Video was only 20 minutes.
Some stuff is so good you just gotta
Jedi mind trick. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway,
Sure.
so there's
there are
so
quite
many
a few other quotes we could have talked about.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get to it in another segment, or maybe we'll get to favorite moments from the movies, and then we'll talk about it then.
Mm-hmm.
But again, so
it's good.
I don't know.
Is this color Arwen brown?
I think her hair's more black, but
Just kidding.
I wouldn't look good with dark hair. With dark hair.
Black hair?
No, too dark. But
fun fact: I've never colored my hair. I'm sure I've said that before.
But that's not why I colored it for the record.
It's getting gray.
That's not why I colored it for the record. Not to lie, I didn't color it to look like Arwen for the record. Just for the record.
Fingers were crossed. Just kidding. I mean, her fingers were whatever. Anyway, sounds good. Signing off.
Yep.